I'm going to graph a parabola. First, let's just drag the graphing object onto the grid. And see this dot at the vertex? I'm going to put it at 0, 0. So this will be the graph of y equals x squared. So that's at 0, 0. Notice it gives us a second dot that it's going to want us to accurately plot. And this is where x equals 1. So the x-coordinate of this dot is 1 to the right from our vertex. Now let's go look at the equation we're going to graph. Here's the function we're going to graph. Y equals negative 4, x minus 2 quantity squared plus 5. Our knowledge of transformations tells us our vertex is 2, 5. The second point is going to be the transformation of the point that used to be 1, 1. To make this video go quicker, another thing you can do is, once you've moved your vertex to 2, 5, and you hover over the second dot, you'll see that x equals 3 at that second dot. We'll plug 3 back into a function to find out that y equals 1, so our second point is 3, 1. Back to WileyPlus. Okay, here we are back at WileyPlus with a clean grid. Drag your parabola object onto the grid. Get your vertex at 2, 5. Notice you can see the coordinates in that gray box as you adjust it. Now we have exactly 2, 5 for our vertex. If we try to take this second dot and move it down to 3, 1, we move the whole thing. Bad news. Get your vertex back at 2, 5. Now what we want to do is we want to take the second dot, and notice when we hover over the second dot we see that x equals 3. That's why we plug 3 into that function to find out that the point 3, 1 is on our graph. So click on the curve away from the dot. This makes the scale tool become active. Click on the scale tool, go back to the curve, click away from the dot. Notice the cursor has changed. Now when you drag that cursor up and down, you're sliding that second dot along the line where x equals 3, and you can stretch it until you get that dot over 3, 1. Now we hit it exactly. If you hadn't, you can hover over the dot, check the coordinates, adjust it up and down as needed until you get those coordinates exactly on 3, 1. So we can check our vertex. It's still on 2, 5. This is on 3, 1, and we're done. Now if you had clicked anywhere else, just in case this happens to you, you click somewhere else, that scale tool is no longer active. The way you get it back is to click on your curve away from a dot, click on your scale tool again, and you'll be able to stretch and reflect your parabola just as we did before. Okay, we're back at WileyPlus with our parabola. We want to shift our parabola as was done with our function, so we need to move our vertex to the point 2,5. So we can just simply drag it up to the point 2,5. Make sure you get it exactly where you want it. You can tell by the coordinates in the gray box that we have got it exactly at 2,5. Now we want this other point to go through 3,1. If we just try to drag the point down there, we move the whole thing, and that's not what we want. So get that vertex back to 2,5. Okay, we got the vertex back to 2,5. We need to use the scale tool, which will appear right there. But first we have to click on the curve away from the dot. Now the scale tool is available to us. Click on the scale tool. Now when you go back to the curve away from the dot, you can see the cursor changes. When the cursor has changed, you can drag it up and down and see it moves that second dot up and down along all the points where x equals 3. So you can hover over that dot to check the coordinates, and it's always where x equals 3, but the y changes. We need to stretch it until the y is 1. We need that second point to be the point 3,1. And we've done it. If you need to adjust it, then just click on the curve away from the dot. If you click somewhere else, that scale tool is not active anymore. The way to get it back is to click on the curve away from the dot, click on the scale tool up at the top again, and then you can stretch and drag until you get that point back to 3,1. So our vertex is at 2,5, our second point is 3,1, and we are done.